Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Sunday. Welcome back to Failing is Not an Option, where we are all things marriage and family therapy. But as always, we can also implement these skills, these concepts, these diagnoses into our own private practices, whether you're working for your own, or whether if you're working under somebody else, or if you're working in a school like me. So, today, I figured we would go over these three concepts that are sometimes quite confusing to us, and they can be very difficult to kind of navigate in questions if you do not have a clear understanding as to what each of these concepts stand for. So let's go ahead and get started with the negative and positive feedback, okay? So these feedback loops are part of what? Your systems theory, right? A feedback loop is just simply a pattern of an interaction that is going to maintain the stability, or it is going to force change within a system. That is those are your like overarching way to look at feedback loops. But when you look at a negative feedback loop, even though it says that it's negative, it's not meant to be looked at like it's a bad thing, okay? We'll dive into that. It is about stability, homeostasis, right? The system is going to respond to a foreign entity, event, aspect, person. It's going to respond to it, but it's going to try to bring things back to the way that it was. Negative feedback is correcting. Okay? Now, let's take a look at the example. And I found this example, but there's so many different examples that we can give. And we talked about the different examples when we did Wednesday night group. Someone used negative and positive feedback loop, and they kind of like made it in a metaphor to playing Uno. If you have a reverse card, that's your negative feedback because it's going to take it back. And then if you have like a draw 2 or a draw 4, that's forcing a change. That's making that other person draw 2 cards because now this other person is going to be what? Upset, mad, cranky that they got to draw these 2 cards or draw 4 cards or whatever. I can't remember who it was. I don't know who it was that gave that example. But if you are watching this video, can you please come forth because I want to give you some credit. Because once you were able to use the example about the reverse and the draw 2, draw 4, everybody had a better understanding of it. I want to give you credit, so please give me your name so that I can give you a shout out. Okay? So we have an example of a negative feedback loop, right? A teenager comes home later than curfew. Now, here's the thing. Think about it. That teenager used to come home on time, okay? That's what we're thinking about. Once that teenager started coming home past curfew, the parents started to increase the monitoring, right? And that parent probably could have been like a helicopter mom. Where are you? I'm being strict. If you're not at home at this time, this is what's going to happen, right? Then the teen comes home earlier next time, right? The family is doing what? Taking it back. When he was coming home on time, meeting curfew, the parents didn't have to implement the monitoring. The parents didn't have to increase any monitoring because now the teenager is doing what? Doing what they were doing in the beginning. That's a negative feedback loop. It was correcting. It sent it back. It's not meant to be bad. Okay? Positive feedback loop. Not good. Okay, let's look at it that way. Like that draw 2 card. I'm giving you draw 2. I'm giving you a draw 4. I'm pissing you off. I'm upsetting you because I'm amplifying. I'm increasing, right? Okay. Change, escalation is your positive feedback loop. The change leads to what? A response that is going to amplify the original behavior instead of it being corrected. So take a look at that teenager that was coming home later past curfew. The parents then started to increase monitoring, probably again, helicoptering, texting, where are you? Hey, where are you? The teen is now cursing the parents out. F you, I can do whatever I want to do. It didn't correct the change. It amplified the change. Okay? The system is then moving away from the old patterns that it once was, right? Because now the teenager is doing whatever they want to do, coming in late, probably keeping up noise when they come home because the parents have set these rules and stuff. That's your positive feedback loop. Now, let's take a look at this example. The teenager comes home late. The parents yell. Teen stays out even later to avoid coming home and to avoid the conflict and everything. The loop escalates. The family system is now pushed out of homeostasis. It's gone. Homeostasis has been gone, right? It's not equal anymore. It's not an equilibrium. It's not status quo, because now this parent said that you coming home late. Now I'm yelling at you because you late. You need to follow these rules. The teen is not coming home on time anymore because now all I got to do is listen to my mom complain as soon as I come in the door. Status quo is gone. He was coming home on time, but now he's not. That's your positive feedback loop, okay? Now we're going to just do a few questions just to get a better understanding over these concepts, okay? A 14-year-old boy, Eli, refuses to do his homework. His mother responds by checking in on him every 30 minutes, reminding him about the assignments. Eli becomes increasingly resistant, eventually yelling at his mother to leave him alone, okay? Before we look at the answer responses, we are treating this as if we are taking the actual MFT national exam. Let's go back and look at the vignette, okay? He's refusing to do his homework. Now his mom is, like I just got finished saying, she's being a helicopter. She's in there checking on him every 20 minutes, reminding him over and over again, you need to do your homework. Eli is becoming even more resistant, and now he's yelling for his mother to leave him alone. This pattern best illustrates which type of feedback loop. Now, we read it twice, so we know that we've seen some amplifying. We've seen some resistance. We've seen some patterns that are changing, correct? So A says a negative feedback loop, the system is trying to restore stability. It's not trying to restore stability because it can't, right? She's being a helicopter mom. He's becoming even more resistant. It's not correcting, right? So A is out. B says a positive feedback loop, the system is escalating, okay? So I like that one. C says negative feedback loop, the system is avoiding homeostasis. That's not true. We already know from A. If A is already incorrect, then we take a look at C and we will probably say C is going to be incorrect too, because we already see some amplifying change behaviors in the vignette, right? D says a positive feedback loop, the system is reducing intensity. That's not true, because there isn't any reduction in intensity. It is actually getting worse, right? So we take a look at B, positive feedback loop, the system is escalating. Yes, absolutely. The mom is becoming a helicopter. The son is becoming even more resistant, and now he's yelling at her. That is your classic positive feedback loop. A daughter begins pushing her curfew from 10 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. The parents respond by grounding her for one weekend, after which she goes back to honoring her 10 p.m. curfew. Okay, now let's look at that. So, because it's kind of like it's plain, but let's look at it again, right? Curfew was at 10 o'clock. She probably came on maybe one day, a few times, 10:30. She's pushing limits. The parents grounded her for a weekend, and she didn't do it no more. She went back to coming home at 10 o'clock, right? So that's telling us that we've got some correcting behavior here, right? So this is an example of what? A positive feedback. The parents reinforced escalation. That's not true, because she was grounded. She didn't yell at them. She didn't resist. She came back home at 10 o'clock after she got grounded, right? B says a negative feedback loop, the family corrected behavior to restore balance. I like the sound of that. Let's take a look at C and D though. Negative feedback loop, the system encouraged something that was ongoing. That's not true. We've had one instance that happened and then we took it back, right? A positive feedback loop, the system returned to homeostasis. Now here's the thing. The system did return back to homeostasis, but this was not a positive feedback loop, so be mindful. Because remember, positive feedback loops are looked at as what? Not good. But D is looked at as what? It's correcting. The family corrected the behavior to restore the balance, making B your correct answer. Don't stray the course, stay the course. Positive feedback loop, the system returned to homeostasis. I like how they did that there. I definitely like how they did that. All right, here we are. Homeostasis in family systems therapy. Okay, so homeostasis is what? It's all about maintaining stability, resisting change, even if those patterns are unhealthy. And I know I've had this conversation. I talked about this with a few people about homeostasis. I know some people seem to think that homeostasis is just like this whole healthy thing. Like, no, it's not, because some people, homeostasis is chaos. That's what they know. That's what their balance is in the system. Homeostasis, it can be healthy or unhealthy, right? So everyone in their family has roles, they have rules, they have patterns, they have interaction patterns that help them keep their balance, right? But just like I talked about in the beginning, when something is going to disrupt that, it can be something that's foreign. Divorce, loss of a job, a death in the family, right? So when that happens, what are we going to try to do? We are going to try to get back to what we know, which is status quo. However, sometimes that does not happen. And we talked about this for the Virginia Satir's model of change. Sometimes that doesn't happen. But when things are that penetrates the system is going to alter it, right? We're going to try our best to scramble to get back to what we know, which is our status quo, right? Homeostasis is not just about the individual. It is about the system as a whole. It's not one person, right? The whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right? It's not just an individual. Not one person is the cause for why this is happening. Not one person is the reason why this family is in therapy. Everyone plays their role, right? Sometimes the questions will show up as positive or negative feedback loops, right? The family, I think any family will try their best to get back to what they know. It's what's comfortable for them. It's stability for them. It's predictable to them. Anybody's going to try to get back. It was the same way when I talked about the loss of my mother. It's like you're running down this hallway, and I don't know if anybody has ever seen a poltergeist. When the mom is running down this hallway, and the faster that she runs, the further and further that door became. That's what it's like. Trying to get back to the same thing, but you keep trying to get back to it, and 9 times out of 10 you're not going to go back. That is the same as your Virginia Satir's model of change. Now, a father begins drinking heavily after losing his job. His teenage son starts excelling in school and taking on adult responsibilities, while the mother avoids conflict to keep the peace. The therapist notices the family members shifting roles to maintain balance in the household. So now, let's go back and take a look at this. Now, it's needless to say that even when we look at this question, the family probably had this balance. The father worked, the mom worked, the son didn't have those adult responsibilities, right? But now, there is something foreign that came and disrupted the system. The father lost his job, but then he also started drinking. Now, him drinking replaced the job loss, which disrupted the family system. Even if he didn't start drinking, him losing his job would still disrupt the family system, right? His teenage son, he starts excelling in school, and then he started taking on the adult responsibilities. But at the same time, the mom is avoiding conflict in the family. Roles have been shifted to maintain the balance. The father lost his job. Now the son stepped in the place of that to try to keep the balance. Remember what I said. In family system, you're going to try to get back to the way things were by any means necessary, because it's what you know. The family's behavior are best understood as an attempt to do what? Is it an attempt to establish a negative feedback loop? No, that doesn't make any sense. Maintain homeostasis within a family system. I like the sound of that. Engage in positive feedback loops that disrupt the patterns. No, that's not true. Or are they trying to avoid triangulation in the relationships? Absolutely not. The father lost his job, started drinking. The son replaced to become the one that's taking on the adult responsibilities. It is an attempt to maintain homeostasis. Homeostasis was disrupted. We can say that they were a loving family. Mom and dad worked. The kid just went to school, worked his bare minimum because now he excelling, obviously. But now they are trying to restore and trying to get back to homeostasis within their family system. In couples therapy, a wife begins asserting her needs for more independence. The husband responds by becoming more controlling and questioning her whereabouts. Over time, the wife stops bringing up her needs in order to reduce the arguments. Let's take a look at this. The wife began to assert her needs so that she can have more independence. Now, that husband's probably been telling her what to do, telling her where she going, what kind of clothes you about to wear, who all about to be at this dinner that you going to. But now the husband has become more controlling, added more to it. So then what did the wife do? She stopped bringing up her needs because she didn't want to have the arguments with him. The husband's response to his wife's attempt at independence reflects what? A says homeostatic pressure to restore the couple's usual interactional pattern. I like the sound of that. B says positive feedback loop that promotes lasting change. No, it's not. Because first of all, we independent, and I'm not going to get into that. But yes, it's not trying to get lasting change, because what change? It went right on back to the way it was. C says a negative feedback loop that escalates conflict. Now, here's the thing. There it is. That's like an oxymoron. Negative feedback loops does not escalate. Positive feedback loop escalates. It's trying to trick you, stay the course. D says a structural boundary realignment. Absolutely not. None of that is going on in here. Homeostatic pressure to restore the couple's usual interaction pattern is what's going on. She started to question and being more independent with herself so that she could have some more independence, and thus more that didn't do anything but make him become even more controlling. It's not lasting change. Lasting change did not happen, because then she went right on back to the way things were, not asking any questions so that she can reduce the arguments. It was an attempt to get it back to the usual interaction pattern. Now she's going to just do what he tells her to do, and it's going to be what? It's more comfortable for the system, maintaining that stability, right? Pay attention to these patterns when it comes to the exam. Anytime that the system resists change or they readjust roles, it is homeostasis. Anytime that that family is going to readjust anything that's going on in order to keep the balance or maintain the balance or take it back to the balance the way it used to be, that is homeostasis. When the system escalates away from the balance, that is positive feedback loops. If the system is going to cause arguing, yelling, resistance, that's a positive feedback loop. If the system takes it back and it corrects itself, that is a negative feedback loop. When it comes to some of the longer vignettes, where it's scenario based, where they're talking about this family system, something might have happened. The kids are now being more defiant. Maybe the mother or the husband is now trying to keep the peace, trying to avoid conflict because something has disrupted that system. You have to pay attention to the vignette as a whole. Remember, it's not just one person. Homeostasis, positive feedback loop, negative feedback loops. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Keep that in mind when it comes to homeostasis, negative feedback loops, and positive feedback loops. It is very, very easy to overlook it. If you have a clear understanding to these three concepts, you will be able to dominate, be able to navigate and understand any question that has to do with homeostasis. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Negative, positive feedback loop, morphostasis, morphogenesis. You will be able to navigate any systems theory question that comes up on a mock exam or the actual MFT national exam. The thing about this exam is, and everything that is about us MFTs, is to do what? Think systemically. All right, everybody, that's closed out for the negative and positive and homeostasis, as well as all of those nice concepts and everything that comes with positive and negative feedback loops. If you have any questions, and if this still does not make a lick of sense to you, please feel free to leave me a comment and send me a message. I will provide the best support that I can give you. I do not want to provide you with any misleading information. I do not want you to end this video where you are still not having a clear understanding within these concepts. I will talk to you all soon.